I'm interested in personal constructions of reality. By employing various editing and cinematic techniques, I'm asking the viewer to reflect on his or her own conception of reality and recognize that art can be a representation of that truth. I draw attention to the constructs of cinema, including sets, lighting, costume, makeup, and editing, hoping to communicate that the audience's reality is equally constructed and as such malleable. I'm aiming to deconstruct the term reality, and in this process reveal both the limitations of images and the ways in which art can open up spaces where one can shift his or her perceptions. I create worlds where the viewer is somewhat alienated from the actor, and is thus continually in a state of critical observation. I want my viewers to question everything. I actively pursue and find humor in absurdity, contradictions, and paradoxical constellations. I'm interested in the slippages of gender and other binaries in hierarchical systems. My work resides in the spacious gray area, where dichotomies cannot survive. Talking about the gray area, this piece was made originally before that piece. This was made in 2009, Everything for Nothing. And I was actually thinking about a lot of different things at the time, because most of my work is very layered, so it's hard to actually just synthesize it in a sentence or in a paragraph. It's about experiencing the work. But after shooting this video, which was shot pretty much in a white studio, I wanted to do something that was in dialogue with this piece. And so on a very basic level, white and black are oppositions, opposite colors. So I wanted to shoot something that's completely on a black stage. And that was my jumping off point. So I created veiled shadows. Again, very layered, and it's hard to synthesize into just a paragraph or a little blurb, but these pieces were meant to be in dialogue with each other. And it's really, for me, it's really about the fact that growing up, everything is sort of presented to you as a binary structure, a binary hierarchy. This is, you're a man or you're a woman, you're black or you're white, you're heterosexual or you're homosexual. And I think that there's actually a lot of variation in between those points. And, but the only thing we have is language to talk about whether or not we are this or that. So because language gets you so close to actually understanding someone, we have these words and they don't always make sense. And so with my work, I'm trying to sort of explore the in-betweenness of those points. I'm more interested in this sort of rhizome, where things are sort of growing upwards, outwards, downwards, inside, outside, and there's no beginning, middle, or end, because time is not continuous as we like to believe it is. Like movies present time as linear. Time isn't linear. And at any given point, I can be reacting to something that happened to me a week ago, a month ago, 5 years ago, and then I have a dream that puts me back into another space, and I'm constantly shifting gears. And so with this work, I'm trying to sort of touch on that fact that we create our own realities, and that there is room for growth in that vagueness, in that space. So what was I going to say? So one of my inspirations, or someone who I've been interested in as of recently, is Deleuze and Guattari. Together they wrote two books that Schizophrenia and Capitalism, or Capitalism and Schizophrenia, and also A Thousand Plateaus. And I'm just going to talk very quickly about some things that they wrote about that I'm very interested in, which is the rhizome, that everything always contains many truths. They talk about lines of flight with potential to move into and onto new territories. An encounter as something in the world that forces us to think. Something is an object not of recognition, but a fundamental encounter. The rhizome is an active attempt to think our own subjectivities differently. And we're always looking for more connectivity. We're desiring machines. I talk a lot about that. And so with the work, I'm always trying to sort of, once you've figured something out, once you have something, then it's boring. So that continual desire to understand something is what I'm trying to do with the work. A lot of the work is steeped or based in my passion or fundamental interest in Eastern philosophy. And I really I would like to believe that I can live a life that is filled with play and absurdity, and I often reflect or think about koans. They're questions that a Zen master gives to his disciple who's then to meditate or reflect upon it. One great example is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And it's an enigma that holds a fundamental absurdity, for it's impossible to reply to one by using logic, and this is precisely its purpose, to open our initial point of view to be universal so that we understand that the intellect, which is words, words, and more words, is useless in helping us find a response. In fact, we do not really live in the world, we live in language. So how do we escape living in language? For me, it's through image and movement and trying to sort of create a cubist structure for presenting video. A lot of people, when they look at my work, they ask me questions about gender and why there are only women in my work or only representations of women. If I have a man in my work, it's usually a man in drag. And for me, I think it's just a preference for me to sort of like play with this idea of drag being, all gender is a form of drag, as Judith Butler says. There's no real core gender to refer to. Everything that our gender is it's socialized, and so much of what we believe is socialized. And so trying to sort of unravel those things that have been played out in our minds for however long, and unpacking them and trying to create our own ideas of what is and what isn't. Ideally, I would like someone to come into this space and connect with the work on a visceral level and emotionally, and sort of that we all have these collective symbolic memories. We're all part of the collective unconscious, and whether we believe it or not, we're born with hardwired with a lot of similar things.